Your father was a hideously ugly goblin. But you, little goblin, are not only ridiculously handsome, but you also have a mature mind and are brutally decisive. Your mother, who brought you into the world, is a woman as beautiful as a fairy. And to top it off, before reincarnating, you were an elite assassin. When you open your eyes, you see a beautiful woman in front of you, trembling from head to toe. You ask her, "Are you my mom?" But before she can answer, the other goblin offspring born with you pounce on your mother, relying on your past life's instinct. I lunge at one and pin him to the ground, completely ignoring his desperate attempts to break free. I grab the first stone I find and smash it into his neck. Almost at the exact moment, he exhales his last breath. A system voice echoes in my mind, happiness. Right at the moment of birth, you have eliminated one of your own with lightning brutality. You have obtained the malice skill and 1 strength point. I ignore the system voice. Instead, I stroke the cord that still connects me to her, feeling a deep blood connection. A macabre smile spreads across my face. There is no doubt, I am your son. In the corner, the beautiful woman looks at me with absolute despair. She just gave birth and has no strength to defend herself. In that precise moment, another goblin hatchling approaches stealthily. Suddenly, he attacks. In a purely instinctive reaction, the beautiful woman lunges toward me and hugs me. To protect me, taking the impact herself, a mouthful of blood erupts from her lips. But I, having just felt the warmth of a mother's embrace, see the blood trickling down the corner of my mom's lips, and I feel an uncontrollable fury take hold of me. In my past life, I was nothing more than a ruthless killing machine, and the only emotion they instilled in me was absolute obedience to mother. So, without a second's hesitation, I pick up another stone. I smash it against the goblin hatchling. The mysterious system voice echoes once more. Congratulations, you have killed a goblin hatchling. Thanks to your devour skills effect, you have gained 1 speed point. My sudden brutality left everyone in shock. But in this precise moment, I have only one thing on my mind: finishing off every goblin hatchling trying to defile and hurt Mom. After I finished off 2 goblin hatchlings in a row, the others realized what was happening. They began to roar at me in fury. The nest plunged into chaos. Immediately, however, a flash of cold, killing intent gleamed in my eyes. One after another, I land precise blows directly to the necks of the goblin hatchlings. The system's announcements didn't stop. After killing 10 hatchlings, I have already gone through more than 10 power-ups. I can clearly feel the changes in my body. Now I am not only stronger in every aspect, but I have also obtained a formidable skill. But right at that moment, the old wooden door burst open, illuminating the dark room. What the hell is going on here? 2 adult goblins entered and looked around. Damn, the room has now become a morgue. There are corpses of goblin hatchlings scattered everywhere. At first, they thought it was the work of the breeding slaves, until the 2 hatchlings surviving in a corner caught their attention. Seeing them, I accelerate my movements. Immediately, I am about to crush the other hatchling. Just as the stone was going to hit the goblin hatchling's head, the other adult goblin grabbed my foot. Seeing that, I jumped to dodge him, and at the same time, while I was in the air, I threw the stone directly. I aimed for the hatchling's left eye. Seeing it still alive, I prepare to deliver the finishing blow. This time, just as the adult goblin lunges to stop me, I throw a handful of sand at him. Immediately after, a stone falls with a thud. My aim is true. With incredible precision, it lands right in the adult goblin's eye. I quickly close the distance. I find myself in front of the goblin again, just as I'm about to deliver the final strike. The goblin shaman, who had remained silent on the side, decides to intervene. The miserable wretch. He waves his staff, and a bunch of vines sprout from the ground, trapping and suspending me in the air. Where did these plants come from? Why are they moving and tangling me up? A simple brat dares to be so arrogant. I'll teach you not to massacre your own kind. The goblin boy, why are you stopping me? This bastard slaughtered dozens of our own. I already notified the general. It will be the general who decides this goblin's fate. Hearing the word general, these goblins, no matter how furious they are, no longer dare to do anything. They won't lay a finger on me. All because of the goblin general, the leader of this lair. But very soon, the goblins shift their attention toward the elf holding me in her arms. With a malicious smile, he says, "Maybe I can't touch you now, but I can dishonor your mother right before your eyes." Feeling their filthy intentions toward my mother, the fury in my heart ignites once again. Immediately, I break free from the vines binding me. Rage consumes my soul. I stand at the goblin's side, dodging his attack with a lateral movement and, at the same time, with a violent twist, I rip his arm off in less than 3 moves. The goblin falls to the ground, writhing in pain. Damn it, another adult goblin can't take it. He lunged forward and raised his axe, just as he was about to let it fall. An imposing voice stopped him cold. "Enough. General, you must do justice so we don't vanish. Do it for us. That child was just born, and he's already killing. We can't spare his life after he slaughtered dozens of our own. To let yourselves be beaten like that by a newborn, and you still have the nerve to come complain to me. Goblin Slayer, speak." Samantha the shaman nodded and explained everything that had happened clearly. After hearing it all, the general's gaze landed on me. While I protected the elf standing in front of me, a look of surprise crossed his piercing eyes, but he hid it quickly. "So it was you who killed them?" he asked again. While I protected my mother with my life, I said nothing. I didn't dare relax for even a second. I could feel that the goblin in front of me was very powerful. so powerful that, even at my best, I would have to face him with extreme caution. Seeing that I wouldn't speak, Samantha the shaman approached and reminded the general. It's normal that a hatchling can't talk. They need to at least pass the infant stage to start developing. If that's the case, we'll wait until he can speak to decide what to do. At that moment, I suddenly felt intense dizziness and collapsed. Luckily, my mother was there to take care of me. I woke up shortly after. Later, my mother and I were taken to a prison. They had many young women locked up there. All of them were used by the goblins to produce offspring, like simple tools. But I noticed that every time the goblins took one of the girls away, I could hear their screams of hysteria and agony. My mother always covered my ears and eyes while she herself trembled and cried in fear. I asked with concern, "Mom, what's wrong?" A goblin nearby heard my question. He suddenly burst out laughing. "What's wrong? She's going to become our toy, of course." As if remembering something terrible, my mother let go of me, her gaze turning empty and vacant. I reached out my small hand and stroked her head. It calmed her mind, which was spiraling out of control. "Mom, don't cry." But the goblins outside the iron door were truly enjoying themselves. The more fear the prey felt, the more excited they got. "Just enjoy it. In a few days, your mother will belong to everyone." With a grim expression, I watched them leave. I burned the face of the lead goblin into my memory. My mother cried because of that wretch. If I kill that bastard, she'll stop crying. So, as soon as night fell, I waited for a lapse in the guard. I took advantage of the goblin's carelessness in the hallway. Using my skill, I merged into the shadows. I escaped the cage easily, since they had been taking people from the cells one by one. The security had become quite relaxed. I had no trouble evading the goblin patrol. I began searching everywhere for the goblin who had humiliated my mother that morning. After stealthily assassinating the patrol goblins, I finally found my target for the night. At that exact moment, he was trying to assault the woman in front of him. "No, please, someone save me. It's useless. Even if you tear your throat screaming, no one is coming." The goblin licked his lips, just as he prepared to enjoy the beauty in front of him. A metallic flash pierced his neck. The goblin's lewd smile froze on his face. The next instant, his head rolled across the floor. The woman, Sarah, didn't understand what was happening. When she saw me, she was stunned by the sight of a child standing over the corpse. I stood in the corner. She thought I was some high-ranking guild adventurer who had accepted a mission. She assumed I used a skill to disguise myself as a goblin and infiltrated the nest for intel. Then, as I prepared to leave with my prize, she stopped me right as I was about to walk away. "Wait, master, please, could you get me out of here?" I ignored her and turned to leave, but I quickly doubled back. I snatched the dagger hanging from the dead goblin's waist. I was more than satisfied with this weapon. Dawn was approaching, so I slipped back to the cell. I curled up in my mom's arms and fell into a deep sleep until morning. The screams of a group of goblins woke me up. I frowned and looked toward the noise. 3 goblins stood outside the iron bars. "Hey, were you the one who killed him?" I stood up, ready to kill those bastards right there, but my mom held me back. The one-eyed goblin outside saw I was ignoring him and flew into a rage. "You little brat. How dare you ignore me? You won't be a child for long, and by then, your mother will have to give you other brothers." That one-eyed goblin was too hideous. I threw a rock at him, nearly splitting his face open. He lost his mind with fury. The goblin shaman intervened. "Enough, this is settled. It was the woman we caught yesterday." The one-eyed goblin tried to argue, but the shaman silenced him with a glare. As the 3 goblins left, my mother and I were safe, at least for now. I could see my mother hated this place. Secretly, I swore to slaughter every last goblin and escape with her. But before I could act, something unexpected happened that morning. A pair of goblins arrived at the cell to take my mother. "I don't have to tell you why. You can come too, brat, so you can watch how we have fun with your mommy." Those were the words of the one-eyed goblin. The others burst into laughter. I didn't care about the insults to myself, but there was no way I'd let those goblins insult my mother. Just as I was about to pounce, my mom stopped me. "Calm down, my love. Wait for me here. Mommy will be right back." My eyes went wide. I wanted to throw myself at those monsters who insulted my mother. However, the other goblin wasn't afraid at all. "Don't worry. I'll make sure to take good care of and savor your mother." The goblin was eager to taste that delicacy. He raised his hand to strike my mother, just as he was about to hit her. That arm went flying. A second later, a line of blood appeared on his neck. He died instantly. Did they really think I'd let them take my mom? Have you lost your mind? You're going to regret this, you wretch. Seeing the situation, the goblin mage prepared to attack me with his fire magic. However, before he could cast his spell, I had already appeared behind him. I grabbed him by the head and slammed it against the floor until I heard the familiar sound of the system. "Congratulations, you have killed a goblin. You have obtained the goblin skill, Fireball." Seeing this, all the goblins froze, but the one-eyed goblin smiled arrogantly. "He is violating the general's orders. He is killing his own brothers. Catch him. Finish off this insolent brat." The one-eyed goblin felt certain of victory, but to his surprise, instead of retreating, I disappeared into the shadows. The goblins searched for me everywhere, but they found no trace of me. Suddenly, a flash of light gleamed. A head went flying through the air. After that, every time I appeared, a goblin died. Gradually, the others no longer dared to approach. At that moment, the system displayed a special message. My strength had reached the cap for this stage. I kept massacring them one after another. Soon, all my other attributes reached the limit too, but I ignored it. Instead, I stared fixedly at the one-eyed goblin, ready for the final reckoning. The One-eyed goblin was so terrified he broke into a cold sweat. The only thing he could do was push the elf in front of me. Wait, this will be over in a second. Son, no, my mother stopped me before I could continue. She knew that for any race, goblins are an incredibly detestable existence. If she let me keep killing, she feared there would be no place left for me here. But in a blink, I appeared in front of the one-eyed goblin. Just as I was about to strike, a dark shadow appeared out of nowhere and caught my dagger. So, you're the one everyone's been talking about lately. The strange cub. Your strength is truly monstrous. When I was your age, my strength wasn't even half of yours. I'm afraid. In the entire nest, only the general as a child could have compared to you. Seeing the Goblin Knight, the one-eyed goblin felt like he'd seen his savior. He rushed to him and burst into tears. Sir Knight, you're finally here. Look, this guy killed all our brothers. However, before he could finish speaking, I had already placed my dagger against his neck. But at the crucial moment, a great silver sword intervened. Do you intend to murder someone in my presence? The Goblin Knight gripped his great sword and swung it with force. In the next instant, I felt a massive force coming at me. My entire body went flying until I slammed against the wall. Just as I was about to lung again, my mother stopped me. Son, don't do it. You can't defeat him. The Goblin Knight is a high-ranking species among his kind. He is under the direct command of the generals. Knights. He's the #1 high-class goblin. He isn't someone I can face right now. Besides, killing a high-ranking goblin is a grave crime. As you are now, it's impossible for you to beat me. So while I'm still in a good mood, get away from that elf. The Goblin Knight hadn't even finished speaking when I already appeared behind him, dagger in hand. But with total calm, he blocked my attack. Feeling my strength increase, a smile formed on the Goblin Knight's face. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He continued, if you don't hurry up and kill me, your mother will die. The moment he finished speaking, I launched a flurry of furious attacks. It even surprised the Goblin Knight that a mere cub could have such strength. It's truly terrifying. But we high-strength goblins aren't powerless. I can't let the Goblin Knight tell me what to do. I have to keep moving forward. I won't let him dictate my path. The Goblin Knight swung with all his might, finding an opening. He launched a direct thrust toward my heart. Luckily, I managed to defend with my dagger just in time, but I still went flying from the impact. At almost the same moment, a metallic flash shot from my hand. The one-eyed goblin, who was just watching from the side, suddenly saw his own head fall to the ground. It was then that the Goblin Knight realized I had tricked him. I killed a goblin right under his nose. Right at that moment, a terrifying wave of power emanated from within me. Under the effect of the Special King Seed talent, my growth path shifted slightly. With a thunderous roar, electric bolts began to race across my body, snaking frantically like a rain of sparks. I underwent an amazing transformation. I didn't just grow 40 centimeters in an instant. My body became leaner and more fluid. With my head held high and my chest out, I looked exactly like a high-ranking goblin. Goblin Knight, kill that brat. The shout of one goblin incited the voices of the others, who began clamoring for my death. Hearing the other goblins, the Goblin Knight gestured with his hand and said, wow, not bad. This is no low-level goblin at all. He had barely finished speaking when a silhouette appeared out of nowhere like a ghost. Under the terrified gaze of the surrounding goblins, I sent the elite Goblin Knight flying with one blow, slamming him hard against the cave wall. I prepared to deliver the finishing blow, aiming directly at the neck of the Goblin Knight. However, just as my dagger was about to reach its target, an invisible force emerged from nowhere. Seconds later, a commanding voice echoed, what is happening here? I looked up and saw an imposing figure emerging from the depths of the lair. It was the Goblin General, the most powerful being in this den. My general, you don't know, but this cursed cub killed so many of our brothers. He is a true demon. The low-ranking goblins accused me, all talking at once, hoping the general would use his power to execute me. But the general simply gestured with his hand, signaling everyone to be quiet. At almost the same time, a small silhouette appeared behind him. I spotted a weak point in the Goblin General's defense. Without hesitating for a second, I lunged forward. I launched a surprise attack, aiming a direct slash at his neck. But just as my blade was about to hit its mark, an invisible force suddenly appeared and sent me flying through the air. That was when the other goblins reacted. How dare you attack the general? With fierce faces, the goblins completely surrounded me. But the general, standing to the side, stopped the confrontation. He told the goblin shaman beside him, take them away from here. The goblin shaman guided me, but I kept an alert gaze, protecting my mother by placing her behind me. Don't worry, we won't hurt your mother. Please, follow me. Accompanied by her, I moved up from the 5th underground level. We arrived at the 2nd underground level. I settled into a cozy cave. Before leaving, the goblin shaman asked for my name. I blurted out 3 words without thinking, Leo King. From now on, I've left my childhood behind. I'll have to go out and learn to contribute to the Wei dynasty. If you hunt, he said, you can bring back many good things for your mom. I ignored his grand speeches, but hearing I could bring good things to my mother, I was immediately interested. With a serious face, I asked, really? Then I'm in. Deceived by the goblin shaman's tricks, I was assigned to the patrol team. The next day, I joined the squad and began to fight. The old goblin pointed to a pile of old, rusty weapons and shouted to the goblins in front of him, pick from here. Choose the weapon you like and feel most comfortable with. Everyone rushed to pick the largest weapons. I, however, grabbed a dagger with one hand, leaving the other completely free. The old goblin warned me, "Those humans over there outside are very cunning." However, I replied that this was enough. Soon, I followed the team to a thick thicket. One of the goblins took some binoculars and stared at the humans who were not far away. They hadn't even fought yet, and he was already thinking about how he would divide the loot. "Remember, kill all the males. Leave the females to us. Leave the females to us. We'll deal with the men later, then we kill them." A goblin on the same team, seeing me so quiet, decided to take his bad mood out on his friend. He said on purpose, right in front of me, "When we get back, let's have fun with the elf. What do you think?" At the mention of the word elf, the other goblins showed lecherous smiles on their faces. None of them knew where there was an elf. At that moment, Gavin looked at me deliberately. "Hey, isn't there an elf in your cave? You should invite the brothers to enjoy her a bit, right?" In an instant, the goblins shot me looks full of envy and greed. Just when Gavin thought I would get angry and attack him, giving him the perfect excuse to finish me off, he never imagined that, without hesitating for a second, I would kill the greedy goblin in front of me. Gavin's heart filled with joy. Immediately, he adopted an expression of righteous indignation and shouted his accusation. "Murdering a comrade is an atrocious crime. How dare you do something like that? I'll send you down to meet the other managers." Gavin didn't expect me to be so insolent, showing him not even the slightest bit of respect. But before he could finish his threat, I moved in a blink and drove a dagger directly into his heart. He gave the order, and all the goblins responded instantly. But if one approached, I killed them. If they came in pairs, I annihilated the pair. My body was agile, and my reflexes were fast as lightning. In no time, the goblins fell one after another. Seeing the massacre, Gavin finally knew fear. He fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness incessantly. He repeated over and over that he recognized his mistake. But after a long wait, he got no response from me, just when he thought he had escaped, and was already planning how to tell the general to settle the score with me. The next second, he felt an icy cold on his crown. His entire body was split in half. After massacring the horde of goblins, I suddenly heard something else. The sound of incessant footsteps approaching. I realized a group of adventurers was closing in. In my past life, I was an elite assassin, but I reincarnated as the most handsome goblin in existence. However, my companions envied my looks. Because of that, they deliberately isolated me and set me up. They made my life a complete disaster. This caused me to lose control of my fury. During a mission, I ended up attacking the other group members. Now, just as I was preparing to rest for a moment, I heard adventurers approaching my position. In a short time, the squad of adventurers reached me. In that instant, they all looked at me with surprise, standing atop a pile of goblin corpses. What happened here? What are they afraid of? Whatever, he's nothing more than a filthy goblin. Look, the green ears of those corpses are still intact. That's all money. With his face disfigured by greed, the leader of the group lunged at me. He was ready to deliver the finishing blow. However, at the exact moment his sword was about to touch me, my body suddenly turned black as ink, merging with the shadows of the forest. Before he could react, I appeared right behind him. I found myself facing a man who had ruined me. I stared at him, ready to show him exactly what a filthy goblin could do. I pressed a dagger as black as night against his throat. Suddenly, a voice rang out behind me. "Holy light defense. Fireball." Instantly, a barrier enveloped Gary, and right afterward, a blast of fire surged toward me. Quickly, I stepped on Gary's back to propel myself and jump. I cleared the fireball with a backflip, landing firmly in the distance, increasing the gap between us. Once again, I merged into the shadows. The team began searching everywhere for my silhouette. The mage prepared to cast a tracking spell to find my location, but I struck first with a precise slash that hit the young mage. The next instant, the girl collapsed to the ground. Immediately after, the cleric also saw a dark shadow lunging at him. With two quick, lethal slashes, I ended his life. Before dying, he managed to scream to his companions, "Run." The remaining adventurers initially wanted to avenge their two comrades, but in a blink, their captain also lay on the ground. The last adventurer left, seeing the scene, ran in terror, trying to escape the forest, but I didn't plan to let him get away. A precise cut tore through his neck. At that moment, the familiar system voice echoed, "Congratulations, you have eliminated a human. You have obtained Constitution upgrade." I looked at the corpses on the ground without feeling the slightest emotion. After looting a good amount of gear, I prepared to take these things to my mother. Soon, I reached the goblin lair. Seeing me carrying such a large bag alone, the other goblins shot me strange looks. They thought my companions had excluded me. Just then, a goblin intentionally crashed into me, pushing his human slave. In any other situation, I would have beaten him to a pulp, but now, I have things in my hands. I ignore the other goblins mocking me and walk right past them. Just as I'm about to enter the lair, an old goblin, Elder Charles, stops me. "Hey, you over there." At first, I try to play dumb, as if I hadn't heard him, but the goblin guards at the entrance stop me and point him out. I have no choice but to turn around. Frowning, the goblin who called me, Elder Charles, has already run up to stand right in front of me. "I just called you. Why didn't you stop? Were you calling me?" "I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any goblins say my name." Elder Charles trembles with rage. Just as he's about to raise his staff, he feels a terrifying aura. If he moves, his head will roll on the ground. He even vaguely feels a kind of pressure coming from a high-class goblin. Seeing Elder Charles stay silent for a long time, I start to get impatient. If you don't need anything else, I'm leaving. Wait, that loot you're carrying, you have to hand over a portion. Elder Charles points to the bag on my back. Hearing that, I can't help but scowl. I grip the bag even tighter. This is mine. What do you mean yours? The loot belongs to the lair. It belongs to the group. How could it all belong to a single goblin like you? The other goblins around me begin to boo and agree with him. Elder Charles takes a deep breath and warns me. You should know well, of all the loot that goblins bring to this place, half must always be handed over. No one is the exception. And by the way, the goblins who went out with you are dead. Hearing this, the leader, Goblin Don, who until a moment ago was so arrogant, froze. Everyone looked at me in confusion, seeing me completely unharmed. If they had run into someone strong, it would be understandable that they'd have wiped out the whole group. But how is it that you returned alone? Goblin Don asked, trying to test me. How did they die? And how did you survive? I'm stronger than them. Want to prove it? Sensing the threat in my words, Goblin Don began to tremble with rage. And then he shouted, you miserable brat, you're too arrogant. Just wait, I'm going to report you before the great Goblin General. I'll bet your crime was cooperating with the humans. Otherwise, how do you explain being the only one alive? Fed up with his nonsense, I turned around to leave, but Goblin Don and his men blocked my path. You wait right here, where you come with me to see the Goblin General. My hand was already on the hilt of my weapon. I was ready to strike at any moment. Everything has a limit. Seeing this goblin blocking my way over and over, I lost my patience. I drew my dagger and shouted, then die. Seeing me approach step by step, Goblin Don panicked. Immediately, he screamed at the low-rank goblins behind him, catch this brat for me. The other goblins reacted, just as they were about to surround me. I unsheathed my dagger to face them. Suddenly, a sharp voice rang out, stop right there. I'll handle this. Without waiting for Goblin Don to complain, the shaman interrupted him. The shaman stood up and told him, very well, you may leave now. I didn't ask any more questions and nodded. I took my pack and left that place. Satisfied, I returned to my dark, damp room in the second basement. Victoria looks at the bloody bag in my hand. Her jaw drops. With a slight tremble, she asks me, did you kill someone for me? I nod without hesitation. Yes, I took out so many people. Aren't I great? As I say it, I raise the bloody dagger in my hand, waiting for my mother to congratulate me. But to my surprise, she slaps my hand away. Don't touch me. I don't understand what I did to make her angry. Seeing her staring at the bag, I suddenly empty all the loot. With a face full of pride, I say, this is all for you. Mom, you can take whatever you like. Victoria feels a mix of pain and sadness. Then she sees a pocket watch with a photo inside. It's engraved with happy birthday. In that instant, she breaks down. Seeing her like that, I panic. I rush to her side to wipe away her tears. Victoria asks through sobs, why? Why did you have to kill them? Because they wanted to kill me. What? Someone wanted to kill you? Are you okay? Victoria's tone turns frantic immediately. She hugs me and checks me over carefully. No, I'm very strong. Mom, do you want me to stop killing people? If I told you not to, would you listen to me? Of course. If you tell me not to kill, I won't. But what if they try to hurt me? It's okay. I can run. I'm great at hide and seek. Looking at me, so innocent and clueless, Victoria realized for the first time the importance of education. After a moment of silence, she speaks to me with total seriousness. I don't want you going around killing people, but if someone tries to kill you, I won't stop you. I just hope you give them a chance. After listening, I nodded seriously. Victoria gave me a relieved smile. The next morning, after breakfast, I prepared to head out as usual. Today, they assigned me to a scouting party again. Unlike the mockery and how they took advantage of me yesterday, this time no one bothered me. Through the conversations of the goblins around me, I had already made a mental map of this great lair's layout, preparing for the day I would have to finish off all these goblins and escape with my mother. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the Sunyan Forest, a group of adventurers advanced carefully through the dense grove. Right at that moment, a group of goblins suddenly jumped from the trees. It was my squad. Seeing they had run into goblins, they all grabbed their weapons immediately and fought them, but I just watched from a tree. I waited until both sides were gravely wounded. That was when I suddenly attacked, annihilating the remaining humans and goblins. With this, I obtained 2 more talents, the goblin's beast instinct and human perception. In that instant, I sensed there was still one human alive on the ground. I thought about finishing him off with my dagger, but I suddenly remembered my mom's words. I put my dagger away and turned around to return to the goblin cave. What I didn't know was that the fact I always returned alone had already caused resentment among the other goblins. I was reborn in a goblin lair as the most handsome of them all. Shortly after birth, I fought my way into a mid-rank goblin squad thanks to my strength. Just now, we had gone out again. However, this time, I was again the only one to return. This immediately provoked the annoyance of the other goblins. At that moment, a goblin in armor approached slowly. I am Knight Leo. Come with me. The general wants to see you. The goblins nearby began to whisper maliciously, thinking it was because of my arrogance that the general wanted to interrogate me in person. I just looked at him with disdain and turned to leave. To me, nothing is more important than seeing my mom again. How dare you ignore me and ignore the general's orders? Furious, the goblin knight lunged at me. He was determined to catch me and bring me to the general, but I didn't even turn around. I stopped his attack with one hand. This left Knight Leo completely stunned. In that instant, the goblin knight struggled, trying to free his wrist from my firm grip, but it was impossible. Roaring, he attacked me with his other hand. I just arched an eyebrow and sent him flying. All the goblins present stood there with their mouths wide open. Knight Leo stood up and roared at me in a fury. Feeling humiliated, he no longer cared about orders. He just wanted to tear me apart. But just as he was throwing himself at me again, a deep, solemn voice suddenly resonated. Stand down. Hearing that voice, Knight Leo stopped dead in his tracks. I also turned toward the voice and saw a burly goblin slowly emerge. It was the Goblin General. An aura of invisible power emanated from him, making the other goblins afraid to look him in the eye. Immediately, all the goblins rushed to bow to the general as he walked slowly toward me. They looked at me, certain he was about to intimidate me. I tensed my muscles, ready to strike at any moment. But the Goblin General only observed me for a moment before turning around. Follow me. He simply began to walk. Seeing that I stayed still, he stopped and added, if you don't want your mother to die, you'd better obey me. Those words were a trigger. My figure vanished in an instant. A second later, I already had my dagger out. I aimed it at the Goblin General's heart, yet the dagger stopped right over his chest. I couldn't move it forward even a centimeter. I knew this was the perfect opportunity one had been searching for. But the Goblin General didn't even look back. He simply stopped my dagger with 2 fingers. Not bad. Your technique and your vision have improved so much in such a short time. I'm going to kill you. Believe it or not, if you think you can do it, try. But can you? With that, the Goblin General moved. A single finger, that tiny bit of force from his fingertip was enough to send me flying. I didn't stop until I had rolled across the ground several times. Then, the General's voice rang out again. If you don't want anything to happen to your mother, follow me without a word. This time, I followed him without hesitation. We reached the top floor of the great goblin nest. On the stairs leading to the castle, I saw that everything around me was covered in beautiful flowers. I couldn't help but think that if my mom were here, she would absolutely love this place. Out of curiosity, I knelt down and plucked one. Seeing this, the Goblin General frowned. When he saw me preparing to pluck a second flower, the Goblin General finally couldn't contain himself and spoke. Enough. These things don't belong to me. Someone else planted them. But I acted like I didn't hear him and kept plucking them one after another. The Goblin General couldn't take it anymore. Suddenly, he punched me in the head, and only then did I stop. By then, I already had a huge bump on my head. I told you not to pluck them. I rubbed my head, feeling indignant. If only I could beat him, I definitely would have attacked by now. Seeing how much I liked the flowers, the Goblin General left me with a lump on my head, and suddenly made me a proposal. If you want to take those flowers, try to land a single hit on me. He looked at me seriously with his arms crossed. I don't want to. You're much stronger than me. Wow. So you also know what it's like to be afraid, huh? I just don't fight. Battles I'm not sure I can win. At that exact moment, the Goblin Knight who had been bothering me before, Leo, came running up. An idea struck the Goblin General. He suddenly pointed at the Goblin Knight. If you defeat him, that counts too. General, don't you think this is wrong? Isn't this bullying a goblin? Leo asked, but he was just pretending to care. His eyes sparkled with excitement. Insolent brat. If the general weren't here, I would have attacked you long ago. At that moment, a flash gleamed in the general's eyes. A panel appeared before him. It displayed Leo's stats and your overall power level. Unlike Leo's normal data, your stats seemed extremely anomalous compared to a goblin who just finished his growth stage. Every time you went out, your attributes would increase. How interesting. For an ordinary creature to increase its attribute power, it usually needs a long period of training. But this boy, in just a few days, has traveled the path that takes others several years. To test your strength, the Goblin General ordered you to face one of the 7 forces in combat. As soon as he announced the start, the Goblin Knight lunged at you immediately. But I didn't show a hint of panic. I simply stepped back and dodged his slash. Then, I raised my hand and launched a massive fireball at the Goblin Knight. But when the fireball accurately struck the knight's armor, it barely left a mark. It didn't do the slightest bit of damage to him. It's useless, Leo sneered. The Goblin Knight's armor can nullify most magical attacks. He smiled with disdain and launched himself into the attack again. Although I managed to block the strike, the tremendous force of the impact still rattled my arm. I didn't expect that. The impact sent me flying through the air. While I was airborne, the Goblin Knight leaped up, intent on finishing me off. But he didn't imagine that, in the next instant, a fireball would slam directly into his face. The fireball did no damage, but even so, he sensed an aura of danger. He stopped his attack instantly and dodged to the side. Thanks to that, he narrowly avoided the dagger I had left behind, followed by a blast of fire that shot out from behind the fireball. In that moment, he felt a shiver of panic. If he hadn't dodged in time, he'd probably be pushing up daisies. Bah, just a slip-up on my part. It won't happen again. But before the Goblin Knight could finish speaking, he realized I had disappeared. He was terrified and began searching for me everywhere. But the Goblin General, standing to the side, narrowed his eyes. He saw it clearly. I used his blind spots to move at high speed, successfully achieving my goal of hiding. That technique isn't learned overnight, and yet, I had only just been born. Something so illogical made the Goblin General frown instantly. No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't understand why. Meanwhile, the battle continued. The Goblin Knight could feel the danger, but not being able to find me drove him to despair. He could only roar in fury. What kind of hiding trick is this? If you have guts, come out and fight. In the next instant, I appeared right behind the Goblin Knight. By the time the Goblin Knight noticed my presence, it was already too late. Just as the dagger was about to sink into the knight's body, the goblin general intervened. In a blink, he appeared in front of me and, using a single hand, stopped my attack effortlessly. Enough. It's over. The goblin general intervened to stop me. In that moment, the goblin knight shoved me away and screamed, "You'll pay for this. I swear I'll make you pay." I didn't pay any attention to his shouting. Instead, I stared at the goblin general. He's not dead yet. Seeing that, I truly wanted to finish him off. The goblin knight flew into a rage. Just as he was about to start cursing, he realized I had disappeared again. In the next second, I appeared right behind him. I left a very shallow wound on his neck. Feeling humiliated, the goblin knight screamed that he would tear me to pieces, but the general shouted at him to retreat. The goblin knight didn't dare disobey the general's orders. Before pulling back, he gave me a look of pure hatred, but he didn't notice that the blood dripping from his neck seemed to be mixed with something else. Once the goblin knight moved away, the general finally turned back, but Muriel stayed there. She asked me from behind, ironically, if I enjoyed the shock. After a week of failures, I finally heard it. The goblin knight was forced to retreat to a room, defeated and humiliated. He jumped outward. The goblin knight struggled to survive, but there was one other detail. I didn't crave to do it. The young man condemned me to lose a period of tremendous work for the battle. When he looked at the leader, they forbade his actions in this place. The goblin general let out a heavy sigh. Then, he made a gesture with his hand. "Go on, leave. Take the flower you gathered. But starting tomorrow, you will come see me every day. I'm going to teach you real combat techniques. It's simple. I am already very strong. What you use are assassination techniques, not combat. Besides, those techniques of yours are far too dangerous. You completely abandon any kind of defense. Who the hell taught you to fight like that? It's as if you don't care. If you valued your own life." "My mother taught me," I replied, but I didn't clarify I meant my mother from my past life. The goblin general narrowed his eyes. "Will you come or not?" he asked. "Will you come, whether you want to or not?" I hated the idea of being with this giant. All I wanted was to go back to my mother. So, with stubbornness, I shot back. "And who do you think you are to say, I don't know how to fight? The one who is stronger than you. Then prove it." Half an hour later, I was sprawled on the ground. Panting and out of breath, I screamed at the goblin general in a fury. "I swear that one day, I'm going to beat you. We'll see if that's true. Try whenever you like. I'll be ready for you when you decide. But before that, get stronger by any means necessary." After speaking, the goblin general walked away. Without looking back, I rested on the ground for a moment. Just as I was preparing to get up, my legs suddenly buckled and I fell to the ground again. The previous battle had consumed all my energy. But if I don't hurry back, Mom will worry. Thinking of that, I forced my body to stand up again, but my legs gave out once more and I collapsed. However, this time I fell onto something very soft. In that moment, I noticed a fragrance different from my mother's. "If you're hurt, you should stay still and rest." Oh my, that Arthur. How can he be so cruel to a child? If this happened among humans, it would be considered child abuse. "Miss, who are you?" I asked. "My name is Elena. I'm Arthur's wife." Then, she touched the scar on her face. "Forgive me. I'm very ugly, aren't I? I didn't scare you, did I?" Suddenly, I remembered something. I pulled away from Elena's arms with difficulty. "I have to go now. My mom is waiting for me. I can't stay." "But you're injured. How about I heal your wounds before you go? Will it take long?" I saw Elena shake her head. I hesitated for a moment, but I decided to trust her. I watched Elena take some medicine out of her ring. I smelled it. It wasn't poison. Toward this woman I had just met, I felt a strange sensation as she healed me. She explained that healing magic generally utilizes one's own life force. It's a type of magic that accelerates cellular metabolism. Every magic has its price. Using healing magic in combat is a last resort. But if you have time after battle, and if the wound isn't serious, it's better to use medicine and trust your own recovery. I nodded, dazed, as if I barely understood. Elena laughed at the sight of me. By the time I left the goblin general's castle, it was already late at night. The old goblin stopped me suddenly. "You haven't taken your things yet. If you don't want them, I'm going to throw them away." He kicked a sack at his feet containing today's loot. I picked up the sack and went to trade with the goblins as I headed back. Just as I was about to enter the den, a small sparrow goblin who had been hiding in the shadows came running out. As he tried to reach me, a patrol stopped him. "Where did you come from, goblin?" the guard asked. But the little one couldn't speak yet. He squirmed, trying to follow me. I had noticed his presence for a while, but ignored him. I focused on trading my items for some goblin shells to use as currency. I bought fruit and food for my mom, and even found several cups of instant noodles. Since the goblins didn't know how to eat them, the price was quite low. I headed to the den, ignoring the small goblin who had been detained by the patrol. I crossed the iron gate without a second thought and reached the second-level den. Upon opening the door, a familiar scent greeted me. I called out, "Mom, I'm home." I had barely finished speaking when Victoria came running from the back of the room. Seeing me covered in wounds, my mom, deeply worried, began checking me over. So, I told her everything that had happened to me today. Though I didn't know the goblin general's purpose in training me, I could at least be sure that he had no intention of hurting me. Meanwhile, in the Goblin Nest Tavern, a goblin knight stood tall, boasting about how he had taught me a lesson. Suddenly, ugh, he spat out black blood. Immediately after, he lost consciousness completely and collapsed to the floor. Then, the familiar system voice echoed in my ear. "Congratulations, you defeated a goblin. Your faction gains wild instinct. You have earned a special evolution point. Soon, thanks to my excellent performance over these last few days, I received a Generous reward. I no longer had to use those makeshift weapons. An assistant helped me choose my equipment. Seeing the well-equipped arsenal in front of me, I was completely dazzled, until my gaze fixed on the black gunpowder in a corner. Immediately, my heart leaped with joy. This is a treasure that's very hard to find. If I prepare enough black gunpowder, couldn't I finish off that so-called goblin general and eliminate him? I silently memorized its location, planning to come back for it later. Then, I continued, checking the other weapons. At that moment, my attention turned to a bow. It looked ancient, but the body of the bow was as sharp as a sword's blade. I was very satisfied with what I saw. After all, in an assassination, stealth and precision are the most important things. Right at that moment, I heard the characteristic screech of the goblins. So I turned around to see my new teammates. I saw a goblin missing an ear, standing there with a blank stare. Then, another goblin holding a staff came running up. Lord King Phone. Hello, I'm your partner for this mission. My name is Julia. Julia extended her hand, but I barely gave her a glance. My gaze, instead, settled on the one approaching slowly. It was Sean. All right, if you have your weapons, follow me. This time, I, a high-ranking goblin, will guide you. I'm also your captain. My name is Sean, and you should feel lucky. Today I'm taking you to see the world. We're going to our goblin armory. But Sean hadn't even finished speaking when he was interrupted by an enormous goblin. I just want to hit people. Looking at the big guy in front of him, Sean let out a mocking chuckle. What a shame. Our mission today isn't to hit anyone. If you won't obey, you can get lost. Hearing the words from Sean, the big goblin didn't hesitate and turned to leave. But he didn't expect that Sean's next words would leave him frozen in his tracks. If you don't obey my order, then you're out of the great goblin nest. It's an order from the goblin general. At any other time, Sean wouldn't have bothered with these low-level goblins. But since it was an order from the goblin general, he had no choice but to obey. Everyone followed Sean until we reached a medium-sized goblin nest. This place was different from the great nest. The moment we stepped inside, we felt a blast of hot air hit our faces. Then we saw a goblin who was actually forging. This place is the goblin armory. This is the place in charge of weapon manufacturing. Almost all our weapons are produced here. But my gaze drifted toward a group of newly captured women. One of them looked especially familiar. The large goblin in the group saw this and grew thoughtful. Why do we waste our valuable resources doing these things that seem useless? Isn't it faster to just steal weapons from those adventurers? It's easier. In our great nest, we already have plenty of weapons stolen from adventurers. Why do we have to go through the trouble of making them? The big goblin didn't understand at all. With the time this takes, we could have killed more humans. We could have driven them out of this forest once and for all. But hearing this, Sean shook his head. The general says we can't always depend on others. Only if we master the technique of forging weapons can we goblins become a truly independent clan and stop being at the mercy of others. The general wants us to stop relying on those adventurers' weapons. Besides, the weapons we steal from the adventurers are mostly custom-made for humans. They are of no use to us goblins. The general wants us to forge weapons that are only for us. Sean didn't contradict the goblin named Silas. After all, this guy was named by the goblin general himself and then chosen to join this squad. He definitely isn't just anyone. Right at that moment, a thunderous laugh suddenly echoed through the cave. A burly goblin, holding a massive iron hammer, approached slowly. You guessed half of it. How is everyone? I'm Hammer, the boss of the armory. You can call me Hammer, that's enough. He looked at the peculiar group in front of him. Hammer the goblin flashed a slight smile, forming such an interesting team out of nowhere. I wonder what the goblin general is up to. Hammer was about to tell them to go to their rooms to rest. Suddenly, piercing screams from the entrance caught everyone's attention. It was a group of women the goblins had captured and brought to the den. They were tied to one another, their eyes filled with fear and despair. Among them, a familiar figure caught my eye. It's Kate, the woman they gave to my enemy. What is she doing here? Right then, Sean the goblin suddenly shouted and lunged at the goblin holding the rope. Hey, are you trying to steal our loot? What nerve. Seeing this, the goblin holding the rope kicked Sean with all his might in the stomach. Sean went flying through the air and hit the ground. Seeing him struggle to get up, the other prepared to stomp on his head. Stop right there. Before you hit the dog, check who the owner is. If you hurt my people, you make me look ridiculous. And you, next time don't just throw yourself at any woman you see. If you want one, go capture her outside. This is our loot. We enjoy it first. It's our right. Or else, you can wait until we get tired of them. The goblin group burst out laughing and prepared to leave. But Sean struggled to his feet and grabbed the low-ranking goblin's hand. Seeing the small goblin insist over and over on taking his things, the low-ranking goblin grew furious and slapped him across the face. But Sean kept holding on tight, refusing to let go. Silas was about to step in to mediate when the other warned him, you better look closely. He's the one trying to steal what's ours. The general said the property of 4 people is sacred, so even if I kill him right now, nothing will happen to you. Then, the other low-ranking goblins approached, and they began to punch and kick Sean. You could see his face was already swollen and bruised, but he still tried to turn around to comfort those girls. However, with that hideous skin of a goblin, his appearance only caused more disgust. One of the low-ranking goblins, seeing he hadn't learned his lesson, brandished his long sword. It looked like he was about to deal the final blow. Sean even flashed a smile of relief. But the death blow he expected never came. A large, strong hand intervened in front of him. Little goblin, although you are weak, you have guts rarely seen. Drop that, you idiot. How dare you point a weapon at one of your own? If you have energy for this, you'd better use it to kill a few humans. And you, who the hell are you? And who do you think you are to lecture me? Brothers, attack him. The low-level goblin lunged roaring at the great goblin. But the low-level goblin went flying, crashing hard against the ground. Seeing the scene, the other goblins swallowed hard. You can't do that. That guy broke the rules. He wanted to steal what's ours. So what? Just give him one woman and that's it. After all, you have plenty. The low-level goblin wanted to talk back, but the great goblin silenced him with a murderous look. And so, after the friendly dialogue with the great goblin, a girl about 13 or 14 years old. However, just as the low-level goblins were preparing to leave, to one side, the goblin apprentice Charlie, who hadn't said a single word. Goblin Tyler finally spoke. Didn't you see how many there are in total? How is that going to be enough? With just one woman? The low-level goblins didn't dare to cross Tyler, so they left 4 other women. Marcus took one in his arms, and led by the great goblin, they took the other. The 2 men who were in the room entered. Meanwhile, Sean, lying on the floor, stared fixedly at the ceiling. Tears wouldn't stop flowing from his eyes. At that exact moment, a timid voice interrupted his thoughts. A young woman had approached him. She wanted to comfort him. Sean got up from the floor, but instantly his legs gave out. Luckily, the great goblin caught him. He helped him walk very carefully. I don't understand what you're saying, but the truth is, you're very strange. How is it that you don't speak the goblin language? Seeing the great goblin so carefree, Sean couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. It seems that, after all, there are good and bad goblins. Then, his gaze landed on the woman next to the great goblin. What? One isn't enough for you? You want her too? Sean stood stunned. For a few seconds, this made the great goblin think he didn't want her. But, to his surprise, the next second, the great goblin raised his weapon and, without hesitation, killed the woman. Sean, seeing this scene, opened his eyes wide. His gaze was full of panic and fury, but the great goblin didn't seem to care in the slightest. He muttered with a look of disgust. How repulsive. I don't know why those other goblins bring these humans here. They should kill them all and be done with it. All the humans who try to invade our goblin territory. We have to kill them all, right? While saying this, the great goblin prepared to put a hand on Sean's shoulder, but Sean slapped it away and let out a roar full of fury. Oh, so you did want her. Why didn't you say so before? But well, it's no big deal. I, seeing that I couldn't reason with this great goblin, grabbed the girl who was still in shock and turned around to enter my room. On the other hand, the goblin Tetsu pointed to the room with Marcus written on it and said to me, "This is your room." I nodded and went inside. A woman in a long dress was standing there, trembling by the door. With her head down, I barely gave her a glance. Without a second thought, I slammed the door shut. Victoria stood stunned in front of the door. Could she actually escape now? Thinking of this, Victoria crept away from the door and headed toward the entrance, moving toward the lair's exit. She was lucky not to run into any goblins on the way. But, just then, a blood-curdling scream echoed in the distance. It was her traveling companion, one of the women those low-level goblins had taken away. She took a hidden peek and froze completely in place. Inside the room, she saw several mutilated corpses, killed in an extremely cruel way. The only person left alive in the room was her friend. She was there, heading toward the door, trying to find a way out, while being surrounded and humiliated by several goblins. At that moment, her friend seemed to see something. Her eyes went wide. Staring fixedly at the door, she screamed in desperation. But since she had something stuffed in her mouth, she couldn't make a sound. Still, the commotion caught the goblin's attention. When Victoria saw the goblins looking at her, she turned and started to run. However, suddenly, a pair of hands reached out from behind her. They grabbed her by the neck and hoisted her into the air in an instant. Although goblins are by nature somewhat savage, I am not like them. I don't let myself be carried away by women. Letting the woman assigned to serve you escape on purpose, I slowly opened my eyes and said to the empty room, "Come out." The next second, Chris stepped out from a corner, with a grin from ear to ear. "Ha ha ha, it's impossible to hide anything from you, Master. Master, to be honest, I came to destroy this place. Do you happen to have any info? Maps or anything like that? It would be great if someone as strong as you helped me. I'd be willing to give you half of my mission reward. I'd hand it right over. I've been in a goblin nest since I was born. In my past life, I was just a killer who lived for his mother. I didn't have the slightest idea what a mission reward was." Seeing me frown in confusion, Chris mistakenly thought I wasn't satisfied with the deal. "How about 60 to 40? 70 for you and 30 for me. I can't give more. 80 to 20. I really can't lower my share any further." Chris looked like he wanted to cry right then. What he didn't know was that I had no clue what he was talking about. Before I spoke, Chris assumed I had already accepted. He immediately shared his mission with me. "My mission is to get a map of this place, and if we can, investigate the defenses and the garrison, even better." The mission reward was 1,000 gold coins. To give you an idea, 3 gold coins are already a month's salary for an ordinary person, and he, just by drawing a map, could get such a generous reward. It was a real bargain. Of course, because of that, the difficulty was very high. As everyone knows, goblins are the kind of monsters that love to attack like crazy, but I didn't care in the slightest about the value of 1,000 gold coins. I knew a weapon would be much more useful. Thinking of that, I stared at the ring on Chris's hand. I could feel it, a vague, mysterious fluctuation of power in the ring. It was very similar to the mysterious force inside me. Noticing my gaze, Chris quickly gripped the ring in his hand. Not this one. This is a very valuable spatial ring. It can store 3 cubic meters of stuff. Out there, it's worth over 1,000 gold coins. I just stared at him without saying a word. My gaze alone put enormous pressure on Chris. He panicked, fearing that if I got angry, I'd finish him off. In the end, Chris had no choice but to take off the ring and hand it over, resigned. I took the ring and inspected it with curiosity. By channeling magic power into this gadget, I could incredibly take objects out and put them in at will. For a moment, I had the time of my life playing with it. Right then, there was a knock at the door. Chris and I locked eyes. Immediately, he activated a skill and became invisible. Hey, is that Kingfin asleep yet? I clenched my fist and opened the door. Goblin Tai and Vidona were there. Goblin Tai pushed Vidona, who was beside him, to the front. I helped you catch the slave and brought her back. I don't have any slave. Goblin Tai narrowed his eyes. That meant this woman really had been kicked out. Who would have thought? I didn't think there were goblins who weren't into women. Just as I was about to slam the door in their faces, I suddenly felt someone grab my wrist. I looked up and saw Vidona's face, bathed in tears. And no, please, don't go. Don't go. I beg you, save me. It was Vidona. She knew what would happen if Goblin Tai took her back. Faced with Vidona's plea, I pulled away from her grip without showing any emotion. Seeing this, she screams in despair. In the future, I'll do anything you ask. No, hearing my flat refusal, Vidona completely loses all hope of survival. As they lead her away, she cries and murmurs to herself, if I had known, I wouldn't have accepted. His mission is that elf. Hearing the woman mention an elf sounds familiar. I freeze for a second. I quickly tell Goblin Tai, wait, I want her. Before the Iron Goblin could react, I pulled Vidona and brought her into the room. The Iron Goblin wanted to say something, but resigned. He shook his head and left. Vidona, who stayed by a stroke of luck, stared at me with a bewildered face. She didn't expect me to change my mind so. Suddenly, seeing that I wouldn't take my eyes off her, she began to slowly undress. It's my first time, so please, be gentle. At that moment, I had a look of total confusion. I let her in only because she had just mentioned the elves. And it just so happens that my mother also seems to be an elf. Just when Vidona only had her underwear left, Chris, hiding in the shadows, finally couldn't hold back and spoke. In that instant, Chris covered his eyes, all embarrassed, and kindly warned Vidona to wait a moment. Hey, if you're going to do your dirty business, at least wait until I leave. After saying that, Chris used his stealth technique and disappeared. It was then that I spoke. Slowly, a moment ago, what was that you said about receiving a mission from the elves? Hearing my words, Vidona realized. So the big boss let me stay because he was interested in this. She immediately told me the whole truth. The reason I entered this forest is because I accepted a mission posted by a team made up entirely of elves, and the objective of the mission is to find an elf named Victoria. Are you sure that's her name? Victoria nodded desperately. Seeing this, I gave her an indifferent look. You can stay here. I don't think any goblin will enter this place. With that, I left the room, thinking to myself, is that group of elves looking for Mom? Are they her companions? If I tell her, I'm sure she'll be very happy. At that moment, just as I was leaving the cave, I ran into the share goblins I saw during the day, low-level, troublemaking goblins. The goblin in charge saw me and was the first to speak. Our guest of honor, where are you going so late? The goblin, Bruce, approached me with a smirk. Just as he was about to put a hand on my shoulder, I dodged him. His brow furrowed. He felt I was looking down on him. His fists tightened immediately. But still, he suppressed the rage inside and extended an invitation. Where are you going? We are about to go out hunting. Want to come? I'm very good at this, huh? As he said that, the shadow beneath Bruce began to distort. Suddenly, it rose up from the ground. With a smug face, he bragged about the skill he had just obtained. What do you think, huh? What do you think of my shadow? It can hide inside other shadows. What he didn't know was that his bragging was about to cost him his life. I glanced sideways at Bruce and then at the low-level goblins behind him. In my mind, the decision was already made. Killing them all would be a waste of time. So I ignored Bruce and simply walked away. Being ignored, Bruce glared at me, but he still followed, trying to help. Wait, you should come with us. It's full of adventurers out there right now. I ignored this too. I let the goblins follow me. Besides, they could serve as shields. During the entire way, Bruce the goblin wouldn't stop chattering. Finally, we left the goblin lair and put a good distance behind us. That's when he finally revealed his true intentions. Seeing that the time and place were right, Bruce drew his sword and moved into position. He glanced at the goblins by his side. Find an opening and attack his back. Let's teach this brat a lesson for stealing our woman. Let him see what we're capable of. The next second, the goblin beside me suddenly lunged and pounced. But what they didn't know was that I'd already spotted all their little tricks along the way. In an instant, I struck down the goblin in front of me and charged toward Bruce. Bruce fell back in terror. He didn't expect me to be so brutal. He realized he'd misjudged me, but he still had an ace up his sleeve. You want to kill me? Huh, you're still too green. Bruce's shadow, which had already hidden in mine, suddenly appeared behind me. His huge, dark sword was already aimed straight at my neck. At this distance, not even a high-level goblin in its growth stage could dodge it. But just as the sword fell, my body turned ink black. I dissolved completely into a patch of shadow. I passed through the sword like it was nothing. Bruce was stunned. Without a second's hesitation, he summoned a shadow in front of him to block the attack. But it was already too late. When I reappeared, I had already crossed the shadow and was right in front of Bruce. My hand pointed directly at his neck. A few seconds later, the system voice announced, "Congratulations, you have eliminated the goblin." I obtained the shadow clone skill and 1 strength point. Seeing Bruce's head fall, the other goblins finally reacted. They couldn't believe what I had done to Bruce. And in an instant, everything changed. But those hypocrites blamed me first. "You damn goblin, you're detestable. How dare you hurt one of our own?" Everyone, attack. A horde of goblins lunged at me. I stayed calm, my face expressionless. I already got what I wanted. I'm at peace now. I have the skill I was looking for. There's no reason to waste time playing with them. And right at that moment, an adventurer's voice rang out. "Goblins over here." That day, while patrolling with a group of low-level goblins, we suddenly saw a pair of adventurers charging at us. Seeing the situation, I immediately backed away. A low-level goblin beside me screamed that I was useless, running away just because you see humans. With that, they threw themselves at the humans. Both sides began a fierce confrontation. Using their numerical advantage, they put up a stubborn resistance. An archer named Arthur saw me escaping and immediately came after me. Seeing that I was alone, I slowed my pace on purpose to lure him deep into the dense forest. "Come out from wherever you are. Cooperate and let me kill you." "You want to kill me?" My sudden appearance behind him startled him. His face was a mask of pure shock. "This goblin can speak the human language." "Is this goblin?" he thought. I might be a rare species, but I didn't have that kind of aura. Could I be some kind of special individual? After clearing his head, Arthur feigned calmness and replied, "Of course, killing monsters is our duty as adventurers." I didn't respond. I just stared at him until he got nervous. Unable to help himself, he backed away slightly. He didn't expect what would happen next. Suddenly, I said, "In your eyes, I see no intent to kill. That's why I'm not going to kill you." With that, I turned around and left. I left Arthur completely stunned in his tracks. When I returned to the rest of the goblins, the adventurers and the low-level goblins were almost all wounded on the ground. Only a warrior with a greatsword named Dale and a single goblin remained standing. The goblin let out a roar of fury, and lightning crackled in the palm of his hand. However, just as Dale and the goblin were about to attack, an arrow sliced through the air. A perfect shot, straight to the goblin's heart. Everyone gasped, and in my ears, the familiar system notification already echoed. "Congratulations, you eliminated a goblin. You acquired the goblin skill, Lightning Strike." Just as I put away my bow, ready to move, a furious scream rang out. "Found you." Then, a sharp knife sliced through the air toward me. I moved in an instant. I jumped from the tree, changing positions immediately. But in that second, I felt an intense, killing intent lock onto me. My gaze hardened. I launched my attack, clashing head-on with the figure attacking me. With a single blow, I sent Dale flying. He crashed hard against a large tree. I looked at myself, unable to believe what I saw. I realized that, indeed, I am different from the others. Though I have the characteristic green skin and ears, my face is very similar to a human's. After witnessing my staggering power, the other team members screamed at their captain to escape, but Dale struggled to his feet. With a look full of determination, he declared, "I won't abandon my comrades." Saying that, he raised his sword again and charged at me. But I simply raised my hand calmly and effortlessly caught Dale's sword with my fingers. How is this possible? In Dale's eyes, I saw a clear intent to kill. In that case, there is no reason for mercy. I deliver a kick straight to his stomach. The impact sends him flying immediately. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, he collapses completely. I look coldly at a dying Dale. A murderous impulse races through my mind. But suddenly, my mother's teachings echo in my head. Right at that moment, Dale screamed with all his might, "Damn goblins. You'll see. The Adventurers Guild already has you in their sights, and we'll make sure to exterminate you all." Hearing those words, the dagger in my hand trembles slightly. I look up at Dale and ask, "Are you going to kill all the goblins?" "That's right. And we're also going to rescue the innocents you have as prisoners." "If that's the case, then you'd better work hard. If you can't fulfill what you just said, I'll come back to kill you." Saying this, I sheath my dagger, turn around, and leave. Watching me walk away, Dale is left with his mouth wide open. He couldn't believe that, in a moment of life or death, I had spared him. Confused, he shouts at my back, "Hey you, what the hell are you doing? Do you pity me? Well, let me tell you something. I swear I'm coming now. I'm going to finish all of you damn goblins. You'd better be careful. Among us goblins, there is one guy who is very, very powerful." After saying that, I disappear completely from his sight, leaving Dale standing there, completely stunned. Looking in the direction I went, he thinks that goblin had something very strange about him. Was he provoking us? Damn it, Dale cannot accept it. He never imagined that the day would come when a low-level monster, a goblin, would spare his life. It is a complete humiliation for him. He swears I will pay dearly. Meanwhile, in another place, planning to return to the nest, I see the dying Goblin Knight. I immediately realize that something is very wrong. I had faced the Goblin Knight before, and even I was no match for him. So, what kind of enemy could have finished him off? I look around. There is no sign, no trace of a master from a battle. That means the Goblin Knight managed to escape. Just as I prepare to leave, the Goblin Knight on the ground suddenly grabs my ankle. "Everyone died. I beg you. You have to take this to the Goblin General." Curiously, I take the crystal the goblin was holding in his hand. At that exact moment, an arrow pierces the air. Luckily, I am agile and jump in time to dodge it. In the distance, a pointy-eared elf watches everything and frowns. Wow, that goblin got away. Plus, that guy has a familiar aura. I run at full speed until I finally reach the goblin nest. Just as I'm about to enter, I get a feeling. I turn around and look toward the dark forest. I can't help but frown. Was it just my imagination? I don't overthink it and head into the large goblin nest. I barely reach the entrance of the second basement when I see a man who looks like a monster. The goblin general raises an eyebrow. It seems you have something for me. I frown slightly as if remembering something. I pull a crystal out of my pocket and hand it to the goblin general. The general takes the recording crystal and immediately injects it with magic power. Instantly, the space around us ripples slightly. Right after, something blue appears, looking like a screen. On the screen, I see a valley. In the red star zone, inside a small house, there is an altar made of stacked sea bones. Outside the altar, there is a magic circle drawn with liquid. Seeing this scene, the goblin general shows a strange expression of disgust. I didn't think the Gate of Truth existed. That those disgusting things would also come here. The Gate of Truth, exactly. They are just guys who, under the pretext of seeking the truth, sacrifice their souls to an evil god. Disgusting bugs that get their power from the earth. The traps of these cultists massacre everyone, and they don't limit themselves to humans. Anything with flesh and bone becomes their target. That's why all the great races loathe them. I nodded, making it clear I wasn't interested. Just as I turned to leave, the goblin general stopped me. Did I say you could go? Didn't I tell you before? From now on, you have to come see me every single day. And why the hell should I listen to you? Because I will teach you combat techniques. It's for your own good. I already told you I don't need teaching. Seeing how stubborn I was, the goblin general felt a massive headache. Suddenly, the goblin general remembered the words of the shaman Sam. He suddenly changed his mind. If you manage to wound me, this is yours. The goblin general held out his hand. They were seeds he was originally going to take to the leader. Almost instantly, I vanished from where I stood. The goblin general smiled with approval. Inside, he was marveling at my speed. A fluorescent flash gleamed, and suddenly, the seeds in his hand had vanished without a trace. In their place, there was a slight scratch on his hand. Though the wound wasn't deep, it radiated a strange aura, as if some kind of power were silently surging from within. The goblin general fell silent. He looked down at the wound on his hand. A smile spread across his face. You've grown. With that talent, you truly are worthy of being king, the goblin general muttered. A flash of determination gleamed in his eyes. Right at that moment, the goblin general suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned incredibly pale, and his body began to stagger, on the verge of collapsing. The goblin general wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. A flash of determination shone in his eyes. He knew he couldn't just fall like that. He still had more important things to do. I managed to snatch the seeds he was holding tightly, but shortly after leaving, I spat out a mouthful of blood. I leaned weakly against the wall and opened my palm, observing the 3 glowing seeds. I let out a slight smile. Mom, you'll surely be very happy. After a short rest, I prepared to return to the lair. But just as I stood up, my body tilted forward uncontrollably. I fell into a warm embrace. I looked up and saw it was Elena again. Oh, what happened to you now? Elena held me carefully in her arms. I tried to get up, but she held me tight. Her massive chest almost left me breathless. Luckily, Elena noticed. Just in time, she helped me lean against the wall so I could rest. Then, she asked me, worriedly, are you okay? I forced a smile. I'm fine. I'm just a little dizzy. Seeing that I was all right, Elena sighed in relief. With great skill, she pulled out bandages and a potion. She began to heal my wounds. You're incredible, I said suddenly. Elena stopped what she was doing for a moment. She immediately asked, why do you say that? I used to be. Not so much now. Oh, really? Or am I wrong to think you're stronger than that? Guy, what? Do you want me to kill him for you? No, I'll kill him myself with my own hands. I said I was going to kill Marcus. A flash of sadness inevitably crossed Elena's eyes. She hesitated for a moment and then asked, do you hate him? Hate? What is that? I don't know. Then why do you want to kill him? I shook my head again, with an expression of total confusion. If you're going to kill him, well, you'll have to work very hard. He is very strong, at least, much more than me. Saying this, Elena stared at the moonlight on the wall, as if she were lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, some books fell from her sleeve. I looked down and saw, How to Forge a Mom, How to Be a Proper Mother. I read halfway through. Elena snatched them away from my head. How to Be a Proper Mother. She was completely blushing and avoided my gaze on purpose. Do you have children too? No, I don't. Then why do you read books like those? I want to become a worthy mother. While saying this, Elena finally looked me straight in the eyes, and then, with a very serious expression, she asked me, can you be my son? Give me the chance to become a worthy mother. No, I already have my own mother. If the lady wants a son, she can have one on her own. Being rejected, Elena lowered her head, disappointed. She seemed to have a very painful secret. Meanwhile, seeing that my body had recovered, I stood up and did a couple of jumps. I felt great, so I said goodbye to Elena. Well, then, I'm leaving now. Elena watched me tenderly, and she nodded as she watched me walk away. A strange emotion ran through her gaze. Instinctively, she put her hand to her belly. Her face grew increasingly somber. I will never forgive those people who took away my right to be a mother. On the other hand, when I returned to my lair, as soon as I opened the door, a silhouette pounced on me. I reacted immediately. Just as I was about to raise my dagger, a familiar scent made me drop my guard instantly. Ryan, you're finally back. Here, let Mom get a good look at you. You're hurt. What happened to you? I told her about my confrontation with the Goblin General. Hearing that, Victoria became even more convinced that the Goblin General was training his son to be his successor. That's good for you. After all, in this world, power is everything. Suddenly, I remembered the gift I had prepared for my mom. I pulled a few moon lotus seeds from my pocket. My mother was very surprised. Such rare seeds. How did you get these? She asked. But I had no idea what kind of flower it was. I tilted my head and looked at her, confused. The moon lotus is a beautiful flower. Legend says its buds bring a touch of luck. It is a flower blessed by the goddess of fortune. Do you want to see them? Yes, I do. But they take long. They won't take long to grow. It only takes a little effort from the micro-elves. Victoria buried the seeds in the soil. Immediately after, she closed her eyes. She placed her hands over her chest as if she were praying for something. Oh, micro-elves, hear my plea. Allow the life sleeping buried in the ground to germinate and grow. As soon as her chant ended, the room, which was in shadows, suddenly lit up. Points of starlight gathered from every direction. They began to swirl around Victoria's body. Shortly after, the seeds she had just buried began to sprout. Tender green leaves grew. And then, one by one, small buds began appearing among the leaves. Finally, thanks to the effort of the micro-elves, the beautiful moon lotus flowers bloomed one after another. In the gloom of the lair, they displayed all their radiance. Seeing such a magical scene, I shouted with excitement. What do you think? Isn't it beautiful? It's very beautiful. Mom, you're amazing. Then, Ryan, do you want to learn? I do. But will I be able to learn? Being of my blood, rest assured that you can, Ryan. Because what I am going to teach you is not magic, but the art of the elven sorcerers. It is a special type of art that only some elves are capable of using. Victoria looks at the flashes of light surrounding you and covers her mouth, surprised. You can't see anything, but if you want to learn, I can teach you. The little spirits of light would surely like her son, even if I am a goblin. You? Excited, I also say, I'm just like my mom. Victoria strokes my head with a satisfied expression. My boy has so much talent. I let myself be carried away by that tender caress from my mother that I miss so much. Deep in my heart, a calm and happiness arise that are impossible to describe. But that moment of peace didn't last long. A strange presence invaded the place stealthily. I was the first to notice the change around us. Quickly, I pulled a small dagger from my waist, and I hurl it toward a dark corner. Immediately, a shadow comes darting out of the corner. Ouch, is this how you welcome someone? While I listen to her voice, a seductive figure slowly emerges from the darkness. A long black dress clung to her slender waist. Her long black hair fell loose. A light veil covered her face, leaving exposed enchanting eyes that seemed able to see everything. You're from the demon clan. I didn't expect it, that in a place like this, there would be a pure-blooded elf. My. If one lives long enough, you end up seeing everything. To think a pure-blooded elf would be captured. If those elves who think they're so noble, those aristocrats, were to find out, I wonder what those old fossils would think. What the hell did you come here for? I asked, not waiting for an answer. Without waiting for her response, I slid quickly behind her. Just as I was about to attack, the opponent raised her enormous scythe and blocked my strike. Immediately after, I felt a terrifying force. I went flying from the impact. It seems I'm no match for this person. In another situation, I would have fled without hesitation. But now, I have to protect my mom, who is standing behind me. Wow, so you stepped forward. Not bad. You can't beat me, and yet, you dare to advance. Let me test how strong you are. With that, Morgana swung her scythe and brought it down on me. The power of that attack was enough to be fatal. Suddenly, Victoria screamed, "Don't you dare hurt my son." The next second, faint points of light appeared around Victoria's body. Countless green vines sprouted from the earth as if they had a life of their own. They spread quickly, tangling firmly around Morgana's hands and feet. Seeing this, Morgana swung the scythe in her hand and cut the vines with ease. But the vines didn't die. Quickly, they repaired the severed parts. Instead, they grew even thicker. When Morgana saw this, her face finally showed a bit of panic. A spirit mage? So what? With a deafening crash, an immense magical power erupted from her body and cleared it. With just one swing of her scythe, the thick vines were shattered. But, by then, I had already escaped with my mom. Let me go, I'm scared. If you take me, they'll discover you. No, if we leave together. Then I saw Nemo, who suddenly burst out in front of me. I put my mother behind me to protect her. My gaze was filled with suspicion. But Morgana mocked me. Hey, Goblin, you're quite strange. Goblins aren't supposed to have a concept of a mother, are they? Why protect the 1 foot? You call your mother? Morgana gave me a suggestive smile. She did it on purpose, right in front of Victoria, winking at me shamelessly. But I wasn't intimidated. Instead, I carefully set my mother down and stood my guard. Without making a sound, I appeared behind her. I strike at Morgana's neck with a lethal blow, but a scythe appearing from nowhere blocks my attack. The shockwave is overwhelming. Just as I'm about to slam into the hard wall, a melodious song suddenly echoes through the air. Then something magical happens. A giant dandelion suddenly sprouts from the ground and manages to Catch me gently, setting me down on the floor. It's useless. Is this really all the power you have? Morgana laughs with an air of superiority. However, just as she is gloating over her victory, a mouthful of fresh blood suddenly erupts from her mouth as she is shoved across the ground. She looks down and sees a dark shadow holding the dagger I had dropped. I am standing right behind her. At some point, I used the dagger to pierce her body without a trace of magic. It's a pure skill. How interesting. But little sister, now you've actually made me angry. Morgana murmurs to herself. Suddenly, an incredibly strong magical power erupts with fury from within her. With that, Morgana's body begins to undergo a strange transformation. Her wounds heal at a visible speed as she slowly raises her hand. An even more terrifying magical power begins to concentrate in her palm. Against absolute power, all tricks and techniques are useless. So die. Morgana hurls a fireball at me. I have no time to escape. My mother hugs me tightly, protecting me with her own body. She summons countless vines from the ground that wrap around us for protection. But these vines, faced with the fireball, were like moths drawn to a flame. They immediately began to burn. The fireball was already lunging toward us. Dying like this is no joke. Wait. Something isn't right. When the dust cleared, Morgana realized that something was wrong. Row after row of goblin knights in perfect formation stood in front of me, blocking the path. They used their own bodies to block that terrifying magical attack, and leading them was the very same goblin who had broken free. Knight Tome, you, the goblin who wants to kill us. Did you even ask for our permission? Do you really think you can stop me? We aren't just going to stop you. We're going to kill you. It would be a pity to kill you. Then, the goblin looked at Morgana with pure malice. Do you think you can do it alone? With that, she slowly raised her hand. A powerful magical energy erupted from her body. Oh, goddess of war and scorching fire, hear the prayer of your faithful servant. Make your flames and your fire descend. Reduce your enemies to ashes. The moment she finished speaking, dozens of fireballs appeared behind Morgana. They flew toward the goblin knights like meteors. But facing the burning fireballs, the goblin knights just burst out laughing. Instead of retreating, they charged forward, ignoring the flames entirely. The fireballs falling on them didn't have the slightest effect. It's useless. This kind of magic doesn't work against us, the goblin knights. Suddenly, a line of blood appeared on a neck. Morgana smiled as she brandished the black scythe in her hand. She harvested the goblins one by one. My, so you're actually this fragile. Seeing two of his brothers fall in an instant, the goblin knight's face contorted in pain. Rage burned inside him. Immediately, he ordered, "Kill her." A seductive laugh echoed through the lair. Wave after wave of goblin knights threw themselves bravely into the attack. But the enemy harvested their lives with terrifying ease. Morgana approached me, scythe in hand. To protect me, the goblin knights roared and threw themselves to the front. They blocked the enemy's advance. In that moment, they didn't fear death at all. Victoria, who had always detested goblins, stood stunned. She never imagined these goblins would act this way. They were fighting to the death to protect her son, but I remained indifferent, pulling at my mother's arm. I kept saying, Mom, let's go, hurry. But Ryan, they're all protecting you, she cried. Are you going to let them pay with their lives? They're protecting me? Why? Did I do something? Did I ask them to protect me? In my past life, I was a cold-blooded killer. I didn't understand the meaning of protecting someone at all, but Victoria knew better. She couldn't allow me to remain so indifferent. You can't live alone in this world. You must have companions, friends, and even someone to love. Seeing my mother wouldn't move, I simply picked her up in my arms. These goblin knights truly don't fear death. That was when Morgana realized that these goblins were willing to die one after another. For a simple low-level goblin, this made her even more curious about my identity. She couldn't help but quicken her pace. Facing the relentless wave of goblins, she swung her scythe. In a circle, unleashing the waltz of death, a circular slash of dark energy expanded from Morgana's center in all directions. Everything that came into contact with that dark light was cut, disintegrated, and annihilated instantly. I realized the danger. Immediately, I threw myself to the ground with my mother, managing to dodge the attack. But looking back, the countless goblin knights who stood behind me had all fallen. Morgana advanced, slowly, stepping over the goblin corpses. Well now, my little goblin, are you ready? I activated my shadow step skill. In an instant, I appeared in front of Morgana. Although she reacted quickly, my dagger managed to wound her face. You little brat, don't you know that a face is a woman's second life? Morgana is furious. She lunges at me with her scythe. Just as I'm about to dodge, I realize I can't move. I look down and see it. The blood on the ground seems to have a life of its own. It's tangled around my feet, pinning me. It's useless. I can't escape. Just when I thought I was going to die, a shadow appears. Suddenly, he's in front of me, blocking the death blow. It's Mike, the goblin knight. But why? A mouthful of fresh blood erupts from Mike's mouth. The goblin knight is fading. Mike, the goblin knight, coughs weakly. He manages to utter one last word. As soon as he stops speaking, Victoria picks me up, seeing me paralyzed. She flees the scene quickly. Seeing me in the distance, the goblin knight has one last spark of life left. With a great roar, his muscles expand. Come on, I swear I won't let you pass. Interesting, but I don't have time to play with you. Do you really think you can stop me? What was that? The dark scythe and the long sword clashed. The shockwave they generated leveled everything around them. Mom, why did that guy block the attack? Because he was protecting you. Why protect me? Before, he wanted to capture you, Mom. He even wanted to kill me. And I almost killed him. It doesn't matter if they are humans or goblins. Temptation. Elves, everything can change. That's something you must think about for yourself. Why protect you? Does he have a hidden motive? And how does it affect you, Mom? I hope one day, Ryan, you can act on your own ideas and save the people you want to save, goblins or elves. It doesn't matter. I'm confused. In my mind, only killing exists, not saving. And as for saving my mom, was it pure instinct? I could only nod, without fully understanding. But then, Victoria hugs me and adds, Ryan, remember, no matter if you are a monster or not, always put your own life as the top priority. If something endangers your life, you can ignore it completely. I barely finished responding when a powerful shockwave hit us suddenly. The force was monstrous. It sent Victoria flying, who was trying to escape. Mom covered me with her body so I wouldn't hit the wall. But the impact threw her against the wall, and she fell unconscious. Seeing my mother on the ground, I reach out a trembling hand and shake her arm. No, Mom, are you okay? Seeing that Mom doesn't react, the worst thought crosses my mind. An indescribable fury erupts from deep inside me. Meanwhile, Morgana has no idea of the massive trouble she just got herself into. Well, did you really think you could escape? And this woman, does she seriously think she's a goblin's mother? Sacrificing herself to protect a simple creature. Is this some kind of joke? This is a first. Morgana covers her mouth, laughing out loud. The moment she finished speaking, I lunged at her. Dagger and scythe clash. The system alerts me. Immediately, limit break has been activated. For a short period of time, my attributes will improve drastically. Meanwhile, my face is full of rage as I grit my teeth. Staring at the person who hurt my mother, only one voice echoes in my heart. I'm going to kill you. I will never forgive you. Morgana is surprised again by my power. A goblin in the growth stage. How can he have such strength and speed? It's almost a miracle. But quickly, she lets out a giggle and applies a bit of force. Overwhelming power transmits through her scythe. In an instant, she sends me flying through the air. That kind of power is too weak for her. I adjust my posture almost instantly. In a blink, I vanish from Morgana's sight. The next time I appear, I'm in Morgana's blind spot, right behind her, going straight for her head. Morgana notices and raises her scythe to block me, but she realizes that I've disappeared again. Morgana looks around, blocking at the exact moment I reappear. After several rounds, Morgana frowns slightly. She didn't imagine my stealth skills would be this impressive. Soon, she loses her patience and screams in a fury. Damn it, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. You damn brat. Enough with your games. Morgana is livid. Magic power erupts from her body. With her expanding magic, she tries to sense where I am, but it's useless. Morgana pales from the shock. This little one in front of her is able to stay calm even while being furious. Using such advanced techniques to face her is truly terrifying. Thinking of this, a drop of cold sweat runs down Morgana's forehead. She raises her hand and forms a sphere of light, illuminating the entire lair. She tries to use it to find my trail. Meanwhile, the goblin knight Marcus rushes the arriving goblins forward. As soon as they set foot in the lair, they see a blinding light ahead. Everyone stops, dead in their tracks, watching the scene in shock. I move through the dark, somber corners at a speed they can't comprehend, attacking every one of Morgana's blind spots. It was truly incredible. Seeing this, it felt like the light in the lair was a spotlight on a stage. The goblin knights present no longer underestimate the low-level little goblin before them. They even begin to feel admiration for me, respect, and veneration. At that moment, I already had Morgana cornered. Her body was covered in countless tiny cuts, but the wounds were the least of it. The real problem was the mysterious poison, gradually seeping into her body. Not even detoxification magic worked. If this continued, she was finished. In that instant, Morgana began to go mad. If I can't find you, I'll destroy everything. She clearly wanted to take everyone down with her. She unleashed a fireball several times larger than the last, preparing to level the entire lair. I noticed something was wrong and tried to find Morgana's weak point to interrupt her magic. At that crucial moment, a commanding voice rang out. Since when are there insects in my territory? The goblin general narrowed his eyes, raised an eyebrow, and shouted to the goblin knights in the distance, she's just a clone, and you've been fighting her this whole time? You even let her kill so many of our own. Hearing the words of the general, the goblin knights were stunned. That woman who slaughtered hundreds of their comrades was just a clone? How powerful must her original body be? The goblin knights hung their heads in shame. No, something's not right. A double can't last this long. Besides, it's impossible for a double to bleed. They use their pathetic knowledge to deny what they don't understand. But I didn't expect a high goblin to exist here. Wow, you seem to know a lot, don't you? You must have been in the human world. For a double, you talk too much. You're just trying to buy time before you die. Besides, if a parallel double dies, the original body also suffers severe damage. Damn it, you really do know a lot. But even if I'm just a double, I'm more than enough to finish you all off. She finished speaking. Morgana, wielding the Black Lotus, lunged at the goblin general. Seeing this, the goblin general showed a hint of disdain in his eyes. He didn't move a muscle. He simply raised his enormous palm. Like a mountain, he firmly blocked Morgana's attack. How is this possible? What massive power? Is this still the same goblin I knew? Damn you. How dare you underestimate me? Morgana, enraged, exploded with all her magic power. Immediately, black aura gusts emanated from her scythe, transforming into several long, dark serpents. They coiled around the hand of the goblin general. Seeing this, the goblin general snorted coldly. Right after, a deafening roar was heard that sent Morgana's body flying. Morgana spat out blood. She was clearly gravely injured. She fell to the ground, knowing her life was in danger and that she couldn't escape. So she concentrated all her magic power inside, compressing it, about to release it. She's a complete lunatic. Just as the goblin general was about to act, I appeared in front of Morgana out of nowhere. Just as she prepared to say something, she was silenced forever by my dagger. Congratulations, you killed a demonic parallel entity. You obtained one of her talents, blood control. Blinded by rage, I didn't stop. I tortured Morgana until the goblin general at my side couldn't take it anymore and grabbed my hand. Enough. That elf isn't dead yet. If you continue like this, I can't guarantee she'll survive. Lily calmed down immediately. She ran toward her mother, shaking her by the arm. Mom, wake up. Kevin already killed the bad guy. Suddenly, I remembered the magic my mother used to heal me before. I began to imitate what she did then, summoning the micro-elves that appeared that time. Small points of starlight appeared and began to surround me. The goblins around me were stunned. An elf capable of using elven sorcery is already a rarity among their own race, let alone for a goblin like me. Even the general was perplexed for a moment, seeing me about to use elven sorcery. The goblin general signaled with his eyes, immediately ordering the goblin knights to take the other goblins away. With the sorcery activated, a soft white light suddenly illuminated the surroundings. Under this white light, beautiful flowers bloomed one after another. The goblin general, bathed in light, felt his old internal wounds showing signs of improvement. Little king, how many more surprises will you give me? Suddenly, from within the white light, a palm-sized creature appeared. It had pointed ears, long hair, and a pair of small wings on its back. Insignificant beings, come worship the great elemental spirit, one of the 7 original pillars. The pillar representing light, His Highness, Arius. Suddenly, the white light faded. Seeing that her mom wouldn't wake up, Lily, disappointed, let her long green ears droop. Hey, how dare you summon me then? Ignore me? You're the one who called me, and you still dare to ask who I am. If you didn't smell so pleasant, I wouldn't even bother with you. Then, could you save my mom? Fine, let me see. The compassionate spirit of white light took off. The great spirit perched on Victoria's forehead. Instantly, a faint light emanated from her body. In a second, Arius understood the situation. Nothing is wrong with your mom. She just needs sleep. She just needs a little rest, and she'll be fine. In the future, don't call me for such nonsense. I'm very busy too. Every day I have to groom my wings, fix my hair, and take a bath. And I have to listen to the prayers of the other spirits. Hearing him say my mom was okay, I breathed a sigh of relief. Ignoring the talkative spirit, I picked my mother up in my arms and walked away. By the time Arius noticed, I was already far off. Damn it, who does this guy think I am? He summons me and then ignores me. What a jerk. Respected Highness, elemental spirit. Hearing the voice, Arius turned around. Seeing it was General Marcus, his eyes, which previously had a mischievous glint, turned icy. For a goblin, you know far too much, don't you? Despite being just a low-level goblin, I was now with a group of goblin knights, being led to the armory. With a grim face, I stayed in formation, following the goblin battalion deep into the interior of the armory. We stopped in front of an iron wall. All right, wait here a moment. The walls, which previously seemed to be solid rock, suddenly split down the middle, revealing a narrow space. This is a freight elevator. It's a device that facilitates vertical movement. Everyone got excited seeing such novel artifacts, but I was the only one who remained indifferent. After all, in my world, these things were completely common. After descending 30 meters, in the elevator, a room built entirely of metal appeared before our eyes. I gave the place a quick glance. If it weren't because that damn old man wanted to see this, I would never have left my injured mother alone. At that moment, Arius sat on my shoulder, looking at everything with a curiosity he couldn't hide. Wow, what are all these things? I thought these ugly goblins weren't capable of making something like this. Hey kid, why aren't you saying anything? I glanced sideways at Arius. My gaze swept over the goblins present. I realized that, besides me, no other goblin could see this spirit. Little goblin. Arius seemed to realize what I was thinking and whispered in my ear. Don't worry, kid. These low-level goblins are incapable of seeing the great Arius. Soon, under the guide's lead, we arrived in front of an iron door. As the door opened, I heard a familiar sound. A burst of shots, one after another, echoed in the spacious room. Is that over there a musket? These are commonly known as firearms. They are a high-tech product from the eastern continent. After a great effort, we finally managed to develop them on our own. Marcus, with a face full of pride, presented his achievements. The other goblins were anxious to start, but I was the only one still wearing a cold expression without showing a hint of emotion. And that has Jane quite annoyed. But she has no idea that Arius, sitting on my shoulder, is active, right? What are all those things? They look super interesting. The great master Arius. I barely had time for a little nap, and I didn't think there would be so many new things in this world upon waking. I completely ignore Arius's chatter and approach the weapon rack. I take the only sniper rifle from the shelf. I hold it in my hands and examine it a bit, and I'm quite disappointed. Sniper rifles are very different from other weapons. They require extremely precise manufacturing. If it's off by just a little, the accuracy goes to hell, and a rifle without accuracy is total suicide. Just then, a group of goblins approaches with a pretty aggressive attitude. Hey, 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 that thing is our jewel. Don't you go breaking it. If it breaks, you're responsible. What's your problem? Well, obviously we're afraid that some hicks like you will ruin the work that cost us so much to produce. I noticed that behind the goblin who spoke, there's a goblin who's all beaten up. Now I understand perfectly why they're so defensive. Weren't we supposed to have explained this already? Ben's disappearance has nothing to do with us. You call that an explanation? Oh yeah? You want explanations? Well, right now we'll give you a good explanation. Barry rolls up his sleeves, ready for a fight. Luckily, Lily steps in just in time. What on earth are you doing? Do you want to kill each other? Or what? Are you acting like I'm not even here? With Captain Jane present, the goblin, well, doesn't dare keep causing trouble. He quickly says, it was a misunderstanding. Captain Jane, we just wanted to test ourselves against these goblins from the Great Nest. We wanted to see how good they were, that's all. I heard that goblins who learn at the Great Nest are very strong. That's why we wanted to test them. Or what? Don't you dare. But that's crossing the line with these goblins. You know these weapons like the back of your hand. We have no idea. Are you just afraid? My leader, Charles, couldn't stand the provocation. He accepted immediately. Seeing this, Barry jumped in right away, pointed at me, and said, fine. I'm going to compete against that goblin. And so you don't say I'm taking advantage of the situation. You can choose the competition, shooting, performance, or assembly, whatever you want. I, meanwhile, was observing the weapon in my hands, without even turning to look at Barry. Furious, Barry stomped his feet to the side. Damn you, I swear I'll humiliate you and then kill you. Even Arthur was worried about me. Hey, do you actually know how to use these weird little toys? Fine then, let the competition be disassembling and reassembling the weapon. That's not fair. You guys already know these things by heart. We don't even know them. That's why I let him choose from the start, right? Of course, if you're afraid and want to back out. That's allowed too, Barry said, looking at me provocatively. Arthur perched on my shoulder. Got annoyed. Who does this ugly guy think he is? Hey, little guy, if you beg the great Lord Arthur, I could tell you the trick to winning, you know? But I ignored Arthur's words completely. I turned to face Barry. Fine, whatever you want. Let's start. My leader, Charles, tried to stop me, but Silas convinced him not to. Don't you think Master Ian looks very sure of himself? And when has that guy ever not looked confident? Let's just see how it goes first. After all, if I lose, I lose. It's not like I'm going to die over it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Barry and I had already reached the workbench. Barry looked extremely confident in this. He didn't plan on losing to a rookie. However, what he didn't know was that I'm no rookie. In my past life, I grew up playing with these things. I know these weapons like the back of my hand. Well, let's begin. Barry had an expression of pure arrogance as he picked up the weapon, intending to watch my clumsy expression, but he didn't expect the weapon in my hands to be ready. Barely a second had passed. In that instant, the other goblins were also left jaw-dropped. It wasn't until I slammed the weapon onto the table with a clack that everyone snapped out of it. Barry, what are you doing just standing there? At the sound of Silas's voice, Barry reacted immediately. He started disassembling his weapon, but it was already too late. The goblin, furious and humiliated, gave up. He screamed at me. How are you so skilled? Almost at the same time, a shot rang out. Barry didn't even have time to react. He already had a small hole in his forehead. Then, with a dry thud, he hit the ground, dead. Following the source of the shot, the goblins' gazes landed on me. They saw my pistol raised, smoke still drifting from the barrel. Congratulations, you have killed a goblin. Thanks to the effect of your predator skill, you have obtained that goblin's talent, auto-healing. Why did you do that? Hadn't you already won? Is this how you wiped out the tribe of goblins? A goblin like you, who massacres his own people, deserves death. Death. That's why I killed him. What's wrong with that? Who told you that winning gave you the right to kill your opponent? Isn't it just common sense? In my past life, during my assassin training, looking down on losers like that only leads to one thing, and that is death. But this isn't an assassin training camp. My words right now were a clear provocation to them. The goblins were about to lunge, but Charles stopped them. Hey, what do you think you're doing to my people? Your goblin killed my goblin. According to the rules of the general, I did nothing wrong by killing him, did I? From what I saw, your goblin wanted to kill Ian. He only fired to protect himself. You miserable. Is that so? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Didn't you hear what he just said? Now calm down. We're all goblins here. The goblin captain hadn't finished speaking when suddenly the ground began to shake violently. While the goblins wondered what was happening, red lights suddenly flashed everywhere, and with them, a shrill warning alarm. Someone has invaded the lair. That day, while you visited the goblin factory with your team to test weapons, the lair was breached. The goblin captain was suddenly attacked in front of the adventurers who came to strike. A group of low-level goblins lunged at them. They went straight to their deaths. The adventurers finished them off quickly. Seeing this suicidal act, I could no longer understand it. Why let them go die like that? With our combat power, we could handle these enemies without any problems. Of course, it's so they see our weak point. That way they'll lower their guard and go deeper. Just watch and you'll see. These arrogant adventurers will find their grave here. You, goblins, does the life of your companions really mean nothing to you? The great goblin, with a scowl on his face, took his sword and walked toward the door. Go. What do you think you're doing? What am I doing? Well, obviously I'm going to kill every single invader. who was outside. Having said that, the great goblin ignored the warnings of Silas. He turned and left. Approaching the first level of the goblins, Ian also wanted to move forward, but he was stopped by Marcus. And you insignificant thing? Do you want to go out there just to get killed? With a single hand, Marcus lifted Ian into the air. Ian kicked, struggling with all his strength. I had to get out of there immediately. I had to warn the adventurers outside about the situation. Tell them to flee quickly. Otherwise, all those people would die here. Without a doubt. Thinking of this, Ian lunged to scratch Marcus. Well, what a temper. But I can't let you go out there and cause a scene. If you don't want anything to happen to that girl in your room, you'd better stay very still. Arthur, who was watching the scene, flashed a malicious smile. At that moment, the gaze of all the goblins was fixed on the big screen, but I didn't care in the slightest. Instead, I remembered my promise. I had decided that nothing else would matter. I wouldn't let anything distract me from my goal. I moved with purpose. Marcus immediately brought his men to follow me, but he didn't count on the fact that, after turning a corner, I would vanish without a trace. By then, I had already reached the third lower level of the goblin lair. After shaking off those pests, I walked alone through this metallic corridor, observing everything around me. I was preparing to draw a map when suddenly, I sensed something ahead. I immediately masked my presence and hid. Not far from there, a goblin captain was talking with a human woman. I saw the captain pull a paper from his pocket and hand it to the woman. Give this to Miller. The servant took the note, turned around, and left without looking back. While watching the servant walk away, the goblin captain had a serious expression. Then, he let out a sigh, just as he was turning around to leave. Suddenly, he noticed the presence of another goblin. How did our little guest of honor get all the way down here? Did my apprentice not look after you properly? Hearing my name, I, King Fenton, stopped hiding and stepped out slowly. Upon seeing me, the goblin captain let out a loud laugh. The general was right. You certainly have your tricks. You almost fooled even this old man. How did you discover me? The goblin captain laughed out loud. He didn't deny it, but he didn't explain either. Instead, he gestured for me to enter the room. My little king, may I invite you to chat for a while with this old man? Accepting his invitation, I entered the room. Immediately, a weapon placed in the center of the room captured my attention. It was an imposing anti-material sniper rifle, which, like a sleeping beast, waited in silence for the moment to wake. My gaze was fixed on it, and Captain Silas laughed out loud. Seeing this, Silas smiled slightly and asked with satisfaction, King Fenton, do you like it? I nodded without hesitation. After all, since I arrived in this world, it was the most perfect mechanical creation I had seen. If you like it, King Fenton, you can have it. What are the conditions? Hearing my words, Silas let out a great laugh. I wouldn't call them conditions. Sir, you can take what I say next as a request. Whether you accept it or not, this weapon is all yours. I took the sniper rifle. I familiarized myself with it for a moment and immediately disassembled it, only to reassemble it again. My speed was such that even Silas, who had studied the weapon for years, was left completely astonished. When I finished assembling the weapon, I looked up at the stunned Silas. It was then that he reacted and said, this old man hopes that you, sir, can go now and save that goblin who threw himself to the front. Also, in the coming days, if you see any goblin you consider worthy in danger, I hope you can save them. Having said this, Silas gave me a deep bow. Although I wasn't very clear on what Silas meant by that danger, I still nodded and accepted the mission. Seeing that I accepted so easily, Silas was quite surprised. What did he mean by that? After all, goblins have many flaws. Silas thought that I, King Fenton, would feel great disgust, but they only do it to survive. Thinking of this, Silas's expression darkened and he suddenly asked, King Fenton, tell me, is our way of surviving as goblins really wrong? After all, in the goblin race, we have no females. We can only reproduce by kidnapping females of other races. I understand that those races hate us, but we only want our species to be able to spread and continue. Silas became more and more worked up as he spoke. He looked up at me, waiting for an answer, but, to his surprise, I responded with total indifference. What would I know about that? If it's wrong, then it's wrong. No need to overthink it. My bluntness left Silas not knowing what to say. I saw him lower his head, muttering. Silas was talking to himself. I stored the anti-material sniper rifle in my storage ring. Without paying any more attention to Silas, I went out to observe the surroundings. I found no trace of the goblins. Meanwhile, a goblin named Wu, with a fierce expression, was searching everywhere. That damn brat. Where the hell did he go? He better not let me find him, or else. Just then, Wu suddenly heard. Where is he? Where is he? He heard a familiar voice accompanied by the voice of a human woman. Wu peeked from behind a wall to see. It was a goblin named Tyler. He was talking to a human woman. In the blink of an eye, both suddenly disappeared. Right at that moment, Silas's voice sounded behind him. What are you doing? What did you see? Wu felt an inexplicable sense of oppression. Involuntarily, he took a step back. Seeing this, Silas simply smiled. I smiled slightly. At this point, what's the use of saying anything? While Wu was still wondering what those words meant, Silas's figure flickered. His sword shot out like a bolt of lightning. The blade's edge, charged with spiritual energy, fell with force. Wu screamed in agonizing pain. He clutched his severed arm, his face showing a mix of fury and terror. If he hadn't been alert, that attack probably would have cost him his life. Why? Did you see something you weren't supposed to see? In that instant, a black shadow fell suddenly from the sky. With a slash of spiritual energy, it struck Wu from top to Bottom. Wu let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was split in two. Seeing such a gruesome death for Wu, Tyler remained unmoved. You're making it very difficult for me to clean up. Just then, a human in a black cloak emerged from the shadows. He wielded a jet-black dagger, still dripping with Wu's fresh blood. He looked at Tyler, and a mocking smile formed on his face. Wow, and here I thought that you, a traitor, felt pity for your comrades. Chris pulled a small bag from his pocket and threw it to Tyler. As he caught it, a flash of fear crossed the goblin's eyes. He hurried to thank him and then left with what he was given. Chris also prepared to leave with the latest information, but he realized he seemed to be lost. Just as he was lamenting, not knowing what to do, Chris suddenly sensed a familiar aura. It's the leader of King's Zone. Besides, in your past life, you were a ruthless and determined assassin. That's why, when facing enemies invading your nest, you didn't hesitate for a second to attack and annihilate them. In that instant, the great goblin who had run to the front roared with rage. Helplessness. Why destroy our home? Because they're goblins, obviously. Just for that? Just for that. They can massacre us at will. Isn't that reason enough? Luke let out a cold laugh. The long spear vibrated once more. The great goblin's body was like a ship dragged by a giant wave. He crashed violently against the cave wall. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His body slid limply to the ground. However, the great goblin did not give up. He stood up slowly. He declared with determination, I will kill you all, no matter the price. But the only response he received was Kevin's laughter. Ha ha ha. What a pity. Right now you are too weak. You can't do anything. He barely finished speaking. Kevin gripped his spear tightly. He prepared to deliver the finishing blow to the great goblin in front of him. However, just as the spear was about to pierce the great goblin's body, he slid away and stood up slowly. The great goblin. The entire lair seemed to tremble from an invisible force. A deafening shot echoed through the lair. Immediately after, a bullet lunged toward Kevin at a speed impossible to follow with the eyes. Kevin instinctively felt an aura of danger. He quickly deployed his magic barrier. He tried to block the surprise attack, but, to his surprise, he discovered that his magic barrier, seemingly indestructible, was nothing against the bullet. Kevin saw that the great goblin was trapped, but with his own eyes, he saw the bullet pierce his shoulder. How is it possible? My body structure is active. A simple gun should never pierce me. What the hell is happening? In that precise instant, a sudden dark shadow appeared in front of the great goblin. It intended to snatch the wounded goblin away. Realizing this, Kevin screamed at the top of his lungs. Mordecai. He barely finished speaking. A dazzling golden silhouette reached the door and rose slowly. It was over. I arrived just in time. Like a lightning bolt, I lunged at you. The owner of that silhouette was Mordecai. Don't think you'll escape so easily. You reacted quickly. You picked up the great goblin and threw him forward. With a clever illusion, you skillfully dodged Mordecai's attack. At that moment, a girl's pleasant voice was suddenly heard. Hee, still trying to run. Immediately after, a rain of burning fireballs fell from the sky directly toward you. The shockwave of the fireball forces you to retreat. Under the light of the flames, Sarah makes her appearance with slow and elegant steps. Your gaze is fixed on the three people in front of you. I can feel it. Their power is immensely superior to mine. If I face them directly, I have no chance of winning. Just as I'm thinking of using the great goblin as bait, Connor recognizes who you are. So, you're the one with the arm. Since you came here, you're going to leave your life behind. Go ahead, try it. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Relax. No one escapes me here. Connor cracks his knuckles, preparing to attack. Suddenly, a metallic goblin voice echoed through the lair. A squad of heavily armed goblins suddenly emerged from the lair and rushed outside. Armed with rifles, they quickly blocked the adventurer's path. Attention, everyone, aim, prepare to fire. At the goblin captain's command, all the barrels of the weapons pointed at the adventurers. Seeing this, the adventurers turned pale. Chaos erupted instantly. In the confusion, Connor reacted at once. He threw himself sideways to protect Sarah. At that moment, the goblin captain gave another order. Fire at will. He barely finished speaking. A thunder of gunfire was heard instantly. Connor broke loose. At the moment of the shot, the goblin captain broke loose.